Okay, we're back again to do problems 6 and 7 from your Algebra Chapter 10 practice test. Number 6 on the screen, where we have a system of 3 equations here. So there's a curveball for you. We have 3 equations, and now we have to find out what 3 variables are. Not only x and y, but there's a w in there as well. So what we're going to use as substitution to solve this system, because we know that w is equal to 24y. We also know that x is equal to 6y. So what we can do with each of those equations is plug in 24y in for w and 6y in for x, and then solve the equation for y. So I'm going to rewrite the bottom equation with 24y in place of w, because 24y is w, and 6y in place of x, because 6y is x, as indicated from the top 2 equations here. So I've rewritten the bottom equation, substituting in 24y for w and 6y for x. And now I have an equation with just a single variable. Y is the only variable. So now I can solve. So I'm going to do the multiplication. 3 times 24y is 72y. Negative 9 times 6y is negative 54y. And this equals negative 36 from the equation up above. I can combine like terms. 72y minus 54y. That is 18y. And 18y equals negative 36. And if 18y equals negative 36, that means that y has to be negative 2. So now that I know y is negative 2, so I can go back to the top equations and say, well, now I know that this y has to be negative 2 because I found that. So as a result of this, w has to be negative 48 because 24 times negative 2 is negative 48. Again, plugging in negative 2 into the top equation. And then I also know that x is going to have to be negative 12 because x is 2 times y, and y is negative 2, so 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. So the solution to this system is y is negative 2, w is negative 48, and x is negative 12. Problem number 7, we have Pittsburgh High School has 1,200 students, and it's growing at a rate of 100 students per year. And Baltimore High School has 1,000 students and is growing at a rate of 150 students per year. So we're going to set up a system of 2 equations using x for years and y for total students for each of the schools. So Pittsburgh's equation is going to be the total amount of students is going to be equal to 1,200 plus 100 times the amount of years that have gone by, because they start at 1,200 kids and they are gaining 100 students every year. So this is the equation for Pittsburgh High School. How many students will they have after X years? This is their equation. Baltimore High School's equation is going to be 1,000 because they start at 1,000 students, but they are gaining 150 students per year. So their equation is their total amount of students equals 1,000 plus 150 times the amount of years that have gone by. So now we're going to solve the system to determine when these 2 schools have the same amount of students. Well, y represents the same amount of students. These equations, once we evaluate them, represent how many students there are, and we want these 2 amounts to be the same. We want Pittsburgh's amount of students, which is represented from this 1,200 plus 100 times x, to be the same as Baltimore's amount of students, 1,000 plus 150 times x. So we're going to use algebra to solve. I subtract 100x on both sides, then I'm going to subtract 1,000 on both sides, and then I'm going to divide by 50. So what this means, since x is 4, it means that after 4 years, these 2 schools will have the same amount of students. And it doesn't ask us how many students will they have, so we don't have to plug this in and find out what y is. We could, and that would turn out to be, let's see here, 4 times 100, which would be 400. So they'd have about 1,600 kids after 4 years, but they're not asking us that. They just want to know, at what year will these two things be the same? And the answer to the question is 4 years.